So, Geraint Davies, Labour MP for Swansea West. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
What do you make of what you've seen and heard today?
Well, what strikes me about all this is that Boris Johnson knew that there was deficiencies with Pincher. He said, allegedly, Pincher by name, Pincher by nature, and yet kept backing him. And the interesting thing here is that the whole of the Conservative, all the Conservative MPs have consistently backed Boris Johnson in the same way, knowing that he's deficient, knowing that he's lied about Partygate, knowing that he hasn't made the right calls, whether it's the highest death rate in Europe on COVID or the slowest recovery or whatever. And now again, he's come out and shown his hand with Pincher. And they're saying, oh, well, now the public understand how deficient he is. We'll stop backing him because he's no longer a winner.
Well, so to be fair to them, though, Geraint, I mean, a number of them have been gunning for him, or been asking him to step down, or been criticising him in public for quite some months, haven't they?
Well, not that long. Obviously, we did have the vote of no confidence after the Easter break. And since then, obviously, we've had two by-elections where it's clear that the public now has seen him in his true oils. But they already knew what he was like from Partygate and the like. And so obviously, everybody's saying, no, stand aside so we can continue. And he's threatening to have an election. And we should have an election, of course, because we need a serious, competent government, which is a Labour government.
How confident are you that if the Prime Minister went to the country, you would form a Labour government, as in a majority government, not a coalition with the Lib Dems or the SNP, a Labour government?
Well, we don't know, do we, the verdict of the country. Presumably we'd be fighting possibly with a different leader as well. That's a Conservative leader, obviously. But ultimately, the last time the Labour Party was in power, the economy grew by 40%, so we were able to double investment in health and education. We haven't seen any growth really in the last 10 years. People's real incomes have fallen. There's 10% inflation rates, cost of living crisis, and a Brexit disaster. So I think really, if we can put together a confident and competent agenda which consists of showing how we can build a strong economy as we have before, we will win.
What was the mood in the House of Commons today? Were you there?
I was there, and the Conservative benches, which are normally sort of shouting in support of the Prime Minister, were eerily silent because they suddenly realise his time is up, and his normal bravado in sort of avoiding questions and making exaggerated claims where they all clap in party mode has suddenly disappeared. So it was it was a sort of a calm before the storm, a moment of silence before the end. But we'll see what happens, because obviously Boris Johnson is a person who will fight and fight on, because his interests are his self-interests.
Well, do you think that despite what's happened today and the visits from the men and women in grey suits, and indeed, so we're hearing, some senior cabinet ministers, including the very new Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi, he may still try and cling on? Do you think that, what do you make of that spectacle if a Prime Minister in his situation decides, I'm staying on? Because I don't think, apart from the Tory backbenchers voting him out, you can do anything about it.
No, that's right. I mean, my instinct is there's 148 Conservative MPs who voted against him in the vote of confidence. There's something like 40 who've since resigned from the government. So that's over half the Conservatives. So if the 1992 committee changed the rules, which they're due to, they can basically trigger a leadership vote, and that wouldn't be a general election.
I think they've said today.
What he's saying.
Geraint. I think I think the Tory 1922 committee have indicated today they're not going to change the rules because the last vote was so recent.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. In principle, they've got the power to do that, and obviously they could change their mind. But what Boris Johnson's been saying, if you trigger that sort of selection process, I'm in a position to trigger an election that you may lose. And so that's the sort of game that's going on at the moment. And that really isn't a sustainable situation where the Prime Minister hasn't got the confidence of his own party, let alone Parliament Parliament overall, and indeed, of course, he hasn't got the confidence of the country. But he is a person who will fight and fight on. So we'll see.
Okay, we will indeed. Geraint Davies, Labour MP for Swansea West, thank you very much indeed for spending a bit of time with us this evening.